Monarch is not necessarily defined within the context of royal nobility, but rather refers to the monarch butterfly. When a person is undergoing trauma induced by electroshock, a feeling of lightheadedness is evidenced, as if one is floating or fluttering like a butterfly. There is also a symbolic representation pertaining to the transformation or metamorphosis of this beautiful insect, from a caterpillar to a cocoon, dormancy to inactivity, to a butterfly, a new creation, which will return to its point of origin. Such is the migratory pattern that makes this species unique. Occultic symbols may give additional insight into the true meaning. Psyche is the word for both soul and butterfly, coming from the belief that human souls become butterflies while searching for a new reincarnation. Some ancient mystical groups, such as the Gnostics, saw the butterfly as a symbol of corrupt flesh. The angel of death in Gnostic artworks was portrayed crushing the butterfly. A marionette is a puppet that is attached to strings and is controlled by the puppet master. Hence, monarch programming is also referred to as the marionette syndrome. Imperial conditioning is another term used, while some mental health therapists know it as conditioned stimulus response sequences. Project Monarch could best be described as a form of trauma-structured disassociation and occultic integration in order to compartmentalize the mind into multiple personalities within a systematic framework. During the process, a satanic ritual, usually including Kabbalistic mysticism, is performed with the purpose of attaching a particular demon or group of demons to the corresponding altars. Now, of course, most people would view this as simply a means to enhance trauma within the victim, negating a rational belief that demonic possession actually occurs. Another way of examining this convoluted victimization of body and soul is by looking at it as a complex computer program. A file or an altar is created through trauma, repetition, and reinforcement. In order to activate or trigger that file, a specific access code or password, a cue or command, is required. The victim survivor is called a slave by the programmer or handler, who in turn is perceived as a master or god. About 75% are female, since they possess a higher tolerance for pain, and they tend to disassociate a lot easier than the males. Subjects are used mainly for covert operations, prostitution and pornography, and involvement in the entertainment industry in general. A former military officer connected to the DIA told this writer, "In the big picture, these people, these monarch victims, are in all walks of life, from the bum on the street to the white-collar guy." In corroboration, a retired CIA agent vaguely discussed the use of such personnel to be used as plants or chameleons for the purpose of infiltrating a designated group, gathering information, and/or injecting an ulterior agenda. There are an inordinate amount of altars from victim to survivor, with numerous backup programs, mirrors, and shadows. A division of light side good and dark side bad altars are interwoven in the mind, and they rotate on an axis. One of the main internal structures, of which there are many, within this system is shaped like a double helix, consisting of 7 levels. Each system has an internal programmer who oversees the gatekeepers, or demons, I wonder, who grant or deny entry into the different rooms. A few of the internal images predominantly seen by victims and survivors are trees, or the Kabbalistic tree of life, with adjoining root systems, infinity loops, ancient symbols and letters, spider webs, mirrors or glass shattering, masks, castles, mazes, demons, monsters, aliens, seashells, butterflies, snakes, ribbons, bows, flowers, hourglasses, clocks, robots, chain of command diagrams, and or schematics of computer circuitry boards. A majority of the victims or survivors come from multi-generational satanic family bloodlines and are ostensibly programmed to fulfill their destiny as the chosen ones or chosen generations, a term coined by Mengele at Auschwitz. Some are adopted out to families of similar origin. Others used in this neurological nightmare are deemed as the expendable ones, or non-bloodliners, usually coming from orphanages, foster care homes, or incestuous families with a long history of pedophilia. Many of the abused come from families who use Catholicism, Mormonism, or charismatic Christianity as a front for these abominable activities, though members of other religious groups are also involved. Oftentimes, victims and survivors generally respond more readily to a rigid, religious, or like a dogmatic or legalistic hierarchical structure because it parallels their base programming. Authority usually goes unchallenged, as their will has been usurped through subjective and command-oriented conditioning. Physical identification characteristics on victims or survivors often include multiple electrical prod scars and/or resultant moles on their skin. A few may have had various parts of their bodies mutilated by knives, branding irons, or needles. Butterfly or occult tattoos are also very, very common, but generally the bloodliners are less likely to have the subsequent markings as their skin is to remain pure and unblemished. The ultimate purpose of this sophisticated manipulation of these individuals may sound unrealistic depending upon our interpretive understanding of the physical and spiritual realms. The deepest and darkest altars within bloodliners are purported to be dormant until the, quote, Antichrist is revealed. These New World Order altars supposedly contain callback orders and instructions to train and/or initiate a large influx of people, possibly clones or soulless ones, thereby stimulating social control programs into the new millennium. Non-biological twinning is yet another bizarre feature observed within Monarch programming. For instance, two young non-related children would be ceremoniously initiated in a magical soul bonding type ritual so they might be inseparably paired for eternity. Possibly another Mengele connection? They essentially share two halves of the programmed information, making them interdependent upon one another. Paranormal phenomena such as astral projection, telepathy, ESP, etc., all of these appear to be more pronounced between those who have undergone this process. The gamma level of Monarch programming is another form of system protection. It's also considered the deception programming, which elicits misinformation and misdirection. Now, this level is intertwined with demonology and tends to regenerate itself at a later time if inappropriately deactivated. The initial process